Welcome to No Mud No Lotus, where we talk about the down and dirty of recovery that often gets stuffed away. It's time that we stepped out of shame and into the light to share our experiences and begin the healing process together rather than sitting hurting alone. Welcome to the third episode of No Mud No Lotus here at Muddy Lotus Recovery, where our mission is to bridge the gap between recovery and self management. MLR strives to offer support and community for those with co occurring disorders and addictions, online and in person, before and after treatment, to all parts of the person and all parts that can be harnessed into the future of themselves. The past couple of years have been really hard for me, and I'm sure for all of you. And like most people, I just want to bring about the much needed attention to mental health and that everybody can come together and come out of their shame and that we can start having that much needed conversation and just stop hiding. So, here today on No Mud, No Lotus, we are going to join yet another survivor. And her name is Kate DeRocher. She is a TV host and social media and marketing manager living in Los Angeles who has a passion for all things mental health. And our topic today is related to emotional traumatic relationships, and we're going to go over things like trauma bonding, breaking free from unhealthy relationships, and finding your own identity after recovery. So welcome, Kate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. All right, Kate, I've known you for some time now, but can you first tell me a little bit about your professional experience and let everybody know where you're coming from out in Los Angeles?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in LA for 11 years. I went to USC and was a TV host for about 6 years after graduating. And from there, I became a social media and marketing manager. I manage a ton of different brands, Instagrams, Facebooks, TikToks, everything like that. I have my own clients and I also work full time for a company doing that. So I'm very much so in the broadcast, media, entertainment world, both behind the camera and on camera. And yeah, that's kind of how I talk about these things that I care about is by creating my own content and posting it all over social media. And it's what I do full time for my job too.
Well, great. I actually ran across some of your content on social media, and a lot of it had to do with relationships and some of the struggles that people can have and how that can really affect a person's identity.
Yeah.
And so, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal struggles with that and your road to recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many different parts of my story, so I'll try to sum it up in a little concise manner. But basically, it started when I was 15. I was in a abusive relationship from when I was 15 to 20. So, pretty much my entire high school career, I was in this really abusive relationship, and everything that you could imagine going wrong in a relationship was happening to me, like physical, emotional, cheating, manipulation, all of those sorts of really difficult things. And since I was so young and those were like my formative developing years, it affected me so much more than I even realized. And I was able to get out of the relationship. I moved from Michigan to California kind of to start my life over. And while I was at USC, my junior year at USC, so about a year after me and this guy from high school had broken up, I got a phone call telling me that he passed away. So when he passed away, I was kind of forced for the first time since getting out of that relationship to really take a step back and look at everything I had gone through. Because I think at first I was just masking it. You know, I was in California, I had this new life, new friends, I was partying, going out. I'd never actually dealt with the trauma that came from that relationship. So when he passed away, it all resurfaced and it became this like 2-year journey of me just being completely lost and so confused, more so than I even was in that relationship, because I was finally being like, oh my gosh, I actually endured abuse and I'm a survivor. Now I have all this trauma that I have to work through. So it was about 2 years of me being pretty self-destructive and not knowing how to handle any of those things. And then finally, one night when I think I was 20, 25, it just all came kind of crashing to a halt. Just had a really emotional breakdown and kind of like just lost it for a moment. And it was in that time that I realized, oh my gosh, I have to like take control of what's happening here. And I have to change my life, or I'm always going to be in this state of depression, being highly reactive and having terrible anxiety. And it was that year that I finally did the work, started going to therapy, went back to my church community, started volunteering there, and just completely transformed like my own heart, my character, and began healing. So it's been a long journey. I've gone through some other painful, difficult relationships and experiences throughout that time and up until now, but I'm definitely on my healing journey now.
Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank
And
you.
it's really something for you to spend. I mean, I've known you since way back then, and when you were in high school, and probably for some of the time that maybe some of this
Mhm.
was even going on. And
Definitely.
I think that's one message, and we'll talk about this a little later in the show. But that to get across that it's not necessarily people that you would think that this type of thing was happening to.
Yeah.
And we kind of have this image in our head of what somebody who is being mistreated or abused would maybe be like, and that's not the case. And I mean,
No.
I certainly, I wouldn't think of that with you. And I mean, you always were, high achieving, and you went on in journalism, and I followed your career there, and you're, this successful media host and social media manager. And then I noticed you putting out all of these mental health. You had a focus of mental health, and that's why I contacted you. But and to have you share your story like this, I think is just amazing, because
Thank
that's the
you.
only way that that people can come out to get better, can
Yeah,
is by sharing, and
absolutely.
by by having you share your story, even just right here, and talk about these things that I watch you talk about on social media. People don't feel so alone,
Thank
and
you.
I just really appreciate that.
That
I'm
means a
bummed
lot.
of you. Yeah.
That means a lot. It's so interesting because you did know me when I was going through
Yeah.
that, and I don't think anybody knew what I was going through. My parents couldn't understand, I couldn't understand, I was so young, and I was like, I was on the cheerleading team,
Yeah.
I was, like, all A's. From the
Yeah.
outside, it looked like everything was totally fine, and even now as an adult, there's, an image of me that some people probably have, but in reality, there's so much going on behind the scenes, so that's why I'm so committed to kind of like forcing myself to be vulnerable and real and tell my story on Instagram, on social media, any platform I can, so that way people know that it can happen to anybody and appearances aren't always everything.
Yeah.
Social media is not real life. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think too that social media, you tell me in your experience in media, because I mean, that's what I teach, and I just know that it can get a bad rap sometimes because it does come with a lot of show and
Mhm.
bells and whistles, and people do hide behind the mask of it a lot of times, but it does have kind of, I guess, what we're trying to do with Muddy Lotus by having podcasts like these, but also with the awareness that we try to spread on there, and what you're trying to do with your platform. And a lot of people do use it. We have Smart Recovery that I'll talk
Mhm.
about a little bit later, where people have come together during like the pandemic, let's say,
Yeah.
and that it can be used for good, not evil. you
Yeah,
know
exactly. It's people like you who are using your platform to spread these messages that we just need more and more of. So thank you for
Oh,
being
yeah.
here too.
No, I just think that, if we can come up with more creative ways to use it, and that more voices like this are heard, then I think that it's not all bad. It's not all
Yeah,
bad.
absolutely. It's how
Definitely.
you use it, and I think it's exciting because, I mean, now that I work in social media, I'm seeing more and more that the content that is this like raw, authentic, vulnerable content, that's what is getting more views, because people want this. They want to be able to feel like they're not alone, that they can relate to people. And when they see, you know, some celebrity or their favorite influencer talking about their terrible panic attacks or whatever it is, they're like, oh my gosh, like I am normal because this person's going through it too. I don't have to feel so, you know, hurt or crazy or whatever it is.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. So then moving forward, we're gonna in a few minutes we're gonna discuss some of the topics. Like I said earlier, codependency, because that term gets thrown around a lot. So we'll explore a little bit what that means. And then trauma bonding is what I've seen as one of the topics on your social media platform. And then we wanted to talk about gaslighting. I know there's a new series out that had Julia Roberts in it, and
Mhm.
streaming, and I have yet to check it out, but I know it's a term that I hear. I teach at the high school, and I hear the term thrown around quite a lot. And then in the early, like in the 20s crowd a lot too. But it is a real thing. I mean, it is a dangerous dangerous thing, and
Yes.
we definitely want to define it and then talk about signs that people can look for, and make sure that it's a two-way street, that
Mhm.
that people don't feel so powerless,
Yes.
because then they know how to get out,
Yes.
that they have
You
more
can
control in
grab
this
it.
situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so then I know that you have a big story. The second part of your story that we would like to hear more of is your self discovery,
Mhm.
and how you took, like, the how do you take back your own image and your identity after you come out of something like that. So I think that would be really interesting to hear a little bit more about, if you're okay sharing that too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It definitely
Okay.
wasn't easy. It took a lot of years, I can tell you that.
You're not going to snap our fingers and we're going to just be a whole new us.
That would be really nice. That would be
Oh,
great.
darn.
Yeah,
We just lost half our audience right now. No, I'm just kidding.
that'd be great. That'd be great.
All right. Well, we're going to cut just to a little bit of a commercial break, and then we'll come right back with Kate after these words from me. All right. Normally, we would play a video telling you about our upcoming things, but one of our upcoming things is a little bit on hold, so I'm gonna not play that video today. But I would like to say a few things about what's going on. One of them is today, so I'm going to Sam. You're going to put the dine and donate thing up. I went on a border. She right over my face. That's what she did. She put it right over my face. Okay, so I will peek around here. No, the dine and donate is today at Buffalo Wild Wings. So Buffalo, nope, that's wrong hand. Buffalo Wild Wings. No, never mind. I'm not gonna do it. It is today, May 15th, and it's on Telegraph, by Meyer. And it is just show this, and I think you can even just say I'm giving to Muddy Lotus Recovery, and they will know that 20% of the bill that you pay goes to us, and that would be amazing. So it's dinner time, and I think that you need to eat Buffalo Wild Wings right now. So everybody go there, everybody have dinner, and get Buffalo Wild Wings, and say, "We're here supporting Muddy Lotus Recovery." And then you don't want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, or it's too late, or you just ate, or whatever, tomorrow you can go to Panda Express and have Chinese food. And we're doing another Panda Express fundraiser. We have one more next month too. They're so generous. So 20% of your Panda Express bill can go towards us again tomorrow. And this way you get to support us. And it's not like you're just giving money away, you get food. You give us money and you get food. So that is amazing. So please, today go to Buffalo Wild Wings, and tomorrow go to Panda Express. And you don't have to cook. It's that easy. All right, take this off my face, Sam. Okay. Okay, so then I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that came out to the Cat Cafe. over at Friends for Companion Animals. So that was a success. We made some money there. We got to help them get some of their animals donated. We got to get their animals adopted. It was, a wonderful event. People came out, even though it was rainy for 2 days. We had a nice day on that Saturday, and we thank you for all the people that volunteered. Hopefully, I've had a few inquiries and emails about when we're going to do it again. So I hope, we've been talking with the shelter, and I hope this summer sometime we will do it again. Thank you again to Tim Hortons for donating the Timbits and the coffee. They're amazing. Thank you to the Rikers. And we hope that this can be an ongoing relationship, and that we will be able to do this again, because cats are better than therapy, or just as good. Okay. Another thing that we're gonna have coming up is we're gonna be at the Wyandotte Art Fair on July. I know it's a ways off. July 13th through the 16th. So look for us. We'll have a booth there. It's pretty popular for everybody to go to the Wyandotte Art Fair. And so we have some things that we sold at the Cat Cafe, and we are going to be continually selling. We started it for Mental Health Awareness Month. That is this month. But so we can put up those t-shirts. Yep, there they are. We have the white Mental Health Matters shirts, and then we have the black Mental Health Matters shirts. And they come in t-shirts, but they also come in long sleeves and then crew necks. So they're $20 for a t-shirt and $25 for a long sleeve or a crew neck. So that's a really good deal, and they're super soft. And if you buy one of these, all the proceeds go to our peer counseling program to help people in recovery. And then cat calendars. We made all of these ourselves, like professionally, took these pictures, and they are nice professional calendars. And they start in June and go all the way through the next year. So you're not going to miss any months. Like, they start next month in 2022 and go all the way through 2023 of May, so that you get a full year of your calendar. And not a lot of calendars do that. So you get these really cute cats, and they have positive quotes on them, and they're all about how it's okay to feel your emotions. So they're $20. So where do you get these? You can get these on our website, muddylotusrecovery.org. You can message us on our socials at Muddy Lotus Recovery. You can private message me. You can any of those ways you can get a hold of us. You can email me, Allison at muddylotusrecovery.org, or our regular email is support@muddylotusrecovery.org. All right, so let's come back with Kate. I'm excited to have more of the nitty gritty here with the specifics. All right.
You made me want Buffalo Wild Wings, Allison. I have to go to Buffalo Wild Wings now.
If you go to your Buffalo Wild Wings, it's not going to support us.
Oh, I'll call them Monroe. We'll make it work.
Can you come to Monroe?
I'll have my whole family go. It's perfect.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I like it. All right. Let's start with just the term codependency, because that is a term that's thrown around a lot, and it's the technical term for the relationship where you depend upon somebody else. So so when defining codependency, how does that fit in with just an abusive relationship in general?
So codependency is kind of tricky because it's literally where you are completely reliant on another person, on their mood, on their behaviors. You are so you prioritize another person's health, well-being, their needs over your own. And it gets so bad to where even if their mood is slightly off, suddenly your whole mood is off. So every part of you becomes dependent and reliant on what this person is acting like or what they're going through. And I see it a lot with trauma bonds, which we'll get into later when I explain a little bit more about trauma bonds. But you become so codependent because this person is literally manipulating you into depending on them in order to keep you kind of trapped in a way, I guess is the word I would use. So if you have codependent, that traits within yourself, it's definitely something that you need to look into and figure out how to kind of separate yourself in a more healthy way in your relationships. So that way you are not as susceptible to these sorts of abusive, narcissistic, trauma bond type relationships.
So you're saying that we kind of that you kind of may have traits in and of yourself where you want to latch on to other people, that
Yeah.
you kind of want to be needed, that you kind of, yeah, I see
Yes,
what you mean.
exactly. It comes from,
Yeah.
like, numerous things, but I think if you are struggling with your self-esteem, being able to,
Hmm.
like, be there for somebody and feel like you're the main person in their life, it feels really good, and it
Hmm.
happens a lot with, like, relationships. If you're in a relationship with an alcoholic, you're married to an
Right.
alcoholic, somebody who has some sort of substance dependency, you care about them, so you want them
Hmm.
to get help, you wanna be able to help get them out of this, this hole that they're in, but you literally, like, take on everything that they're going through and make it your own. So
Yeah.
not only does it hurt you because all your attention, all your energy is on this other person, but also it hurts the person because you're kind of enabling them. So
Right.
the more you are doing things for them, you're taking care of them, you're scheduling their appointments, whatever it is, the less they're going to have to do it. So they're not going to get help on their own. So
Right.
it's a tricky thing.
It is, and we do a lot of things with eating disorders and substance use, and
Mhm.
a lot of times in recovery, that will be a whole course codependency, because a lot of times, number one, people who are in substance use recovery or eating disorder use recovery will kind of go gear towards each other because of relating to one another, but then have this urge to take care of one another, and
Right.
then kind of get reliant on that. And then also, it can sort of like fuel this, not wanting to take care of yourself. But I think it can also, if you can, that self love though, that we share. I'm learning right now. This is something that is a self discovery of my own. That if we can kind of separate ourselves, in the sense of a lot of the DBTs. I don't know if you're familiar with like
Yeah.
dialectical behavioral therapy. I
Yes,
think we
it
talked
was
about this a little bit
functional
on the phone.
training, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really into that right now. So, but if we can use a lot of those skills to remove ourselves a little bit, then it becomes where we have boundaries, and then
Yes,
and I'm sure we'll get to this when we talk more about how where to go from here, but and how to get out, how to break free. But if we can do that, then taking care of others, you have to take care of yourself first.
yes.
Like, that's not a selfish thing to
No,
take care of ourselves,
it's actually, like, quite the opposite. I always say you can't, like, pour out of an empty cup. So if I wanna be serving people and loving people and caring for them, I can't possibly do it if I'm already completely drained. So I have to take care of myself first in order to, in a healthy way, take care of somebody else. So
Right.
that was a big thing for me to learn, was boundaries has been so instrumental to my healing and to me not attracting these sorts of relationships anymore, being able to say, like, no, sorry, I can't do that. Or no, sorry, I'm not comfortable with this. Whatever it is, it just, you're protecting yourself while also caring for the other person. And it maybe doesn't seem like you are, but you
Mm,
are. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. At the time, it feels wrong, but
Yeah.
you
You feel
start to
bad.
see you start to see the fruit of that, and then you realize it's not wrong.
Exactly.
It's yeah, it
Good
works
thing.
out. Okay, good. So you mentioned trauma bond. So let's talk about what specifically does that mean. So obviously bond between two people. So where does the
Yes.
trauma come in?
Yeah. I'm basically like a little trauma bond expert at this point. I don't know. I mean, I've been in trauma bonds, so I know a lot about them just naturally, but I've studied them so much. I talk about them so much. I see so many women, especially, like, coming to me telling me about their trauma bond relationships. So I find it super fascinating. But a trauma bond is essentially a really strong bond that you form, that a victim forms with their abuser. And the abuser, it's a cyclical pattern of abuse that the abuser is using to keep the victim stuck. So what happens is the abuser, it's often a narcissist, is preying on an empath. Not always, but that's what I've experienced when I've seen a lot. The abuser will give you, like, so much love, so much affection and attention, time, say the nicest things to you one day, and then the next day be completely cold and cruel and cut you down or withdraw or push you away, whatever it is. And then they go back and forth between this high, it feels great, you feel so safe and secure, and then this low where you're stuck being like, what on earth is going on? Did I do something wrong to make them angry? Do they not like me? Whatever it is, it's this constant pattern. And the abuser does it because they know that if they give you that little hit again, they can just keep you hooked. So they just keep you in this cycle, the cyclical pattern of abuse. And you become so twisted up in yourself, so confused in yourself. You can't make sense of what's going on because one day you're feeling good and the next day you're feeling terrible. It actually forms a chemical addiction in your brain. Like scientifically, there's science behind this, where when they give you that attention, that love, the affection, they're kind to you, it gives you a dopamine hit, like feel good, serotonin, it's called the feel good drug. And then when they drop you, they give you a cortisol hit. So you're going between highs and then extreme stress, highs, extreme stress. And that's how addiction is formed. So when it comes to trauma bonds, people will always be like, why didn't you leave? He was mean to you. How did you not get out of this relationship? And what people don't understand is that there's an actual chemical dependency being built in your brain, just like it would with alcohol or substances that you now have to heal. So it's a lot more in depth than just being like, oh, this guy is a jerk, I need to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've often heard it as like a new pathway has to be like formed habitually in order to, but in order to do that, you have to consciously sow that, and it feels wrong to do that because it's going against like that chemical feel, like you're saying. So it's not going to feel comfortable to do that.
No.
It's not going to feel like the right thing to do.
I liken it to like symptoms of actual withdrawal, where when you finally are like, okay, I have to get away from this, I have to break free from this relationship, and you try to cut off contact or you try to give yourself space, you actually feel like sick to your stomach, like you can't think straight, like you're having these withdrawal symptoms because you quite literally are addicted to this person, this relationship, and suddenly you're cutting yourself off from it, and your brain is like, what the heck? No, I need that dopamine hit again. So it's actually like you're going through withdrawal, and it's hard. It is a hard stage to go through. I think I've done it twice. First with the guy back in high school, and then actually one just like a year ago where I had to break free and go through this whole cycle of withdrawal, and it took everything out of me. But once you finally are able to break it and like heal the pattern in your brain, you're free.
Yeah. It's very similar to a substance. It's very similar to I know that when you step back from just personally from like an eating disorder standpoint, or from it, the brain that you have when you are like miles from that. And I've had relapses with it pretty hardcore as an adult. So I know that in between and like the brain that you have when you've stepped away is not the same brain. Like it is not. So you can very much in that moment not think like that you can do this because you're in, like you said, the chemicals are going, the addiction is there, and it does not feel like you can, but that like one foot in front of the next, and then we can kind of get into where people can get support and some of these tips and helplines. And I mean, like there are so many different ways to reach out, but bottom line is it's not easy and it's not going to feel okay. It's just not. It's just not.
I'll have people, ask me for advice on what to do, and I'll give them all these practical steps, but I'm like, it's going to be a lot harder than you realize it is. And so many, it's always, I talk to women the most, they'll come to me and be like, I can't figure out why I can't end this. Like I cannot get away from it. I'm like, I get it. I've been there. It'll take a lot of strength, a lot of courage, but it is possible.
Yeah. A lot of strength, a lot of courage, and like being nice to yourself.
Yes.
Like don't be so easy on yourself that you say, okay, then just give up and go back. I'm saying, but like be strong, and then be like kind to yourself in the fact of like that like, what would you tell somebody else who was doing something really hard? Like you would be encouraging, you would tell them to keep going, but at the same time you would be, there, it's okay that it's hard, like keep going, but it's okay,
Exactly. You need so much compassion for yourself. And like you said, like how you relapsed, that's a real thing with trauma bonds too. Like I've relapsed either back to that same person or attracted that same sort of relationship for again. And it's kind of the same sort of thing. It's kind of like a relapse where your brain legitimately was changed for a period of time and you're healing it, and sometimes that can resurface, but that's,
Yeah.
it's okay. You just keep
Yeah.
going and you keep learning, and you deserve like grace and compassion within
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Smart Recovery meetings, and in some other groups, we've been talking about how you're not the same person that you were when you started over last time.
Yep.
Like you're not at square one. You're
Yes.
not, because you come with all this knowledge that you have from your time of recovery.
Mhm.
So when you do relapse, or when you do find yourself in another abusive relationship, or what have you, because I know that, and I was going to talk about that a little bit too, that it's not like you have to be, you're not dumb, you're not weak, you're not, it doesn't, these narcissists or these gaslighters, they do not just attack on people that are weak and that are have no self-esteem. I mean, yes, we were talking about earlier that it could be somebody that may have that trait in them,
Mhm.
but people shouldn't just feel like, I relapsed or I found another abusive relationship and like, how dumb am I?
Yes.
Because because it can definitely, people can be strong people, which we were talking about. You definitely are, and it's just, it happens, and
Yep.
you definitely are the same. You're definitely have gained so much from your recovery, and you're taking it with you. So if you are starting again in recovery, you're not starting from square one. Like, you
Yep.
have all that with you. I'm sure in your second go around, you were armed with a heck of a lot more
Oh, yes.
knowledge.
I knew, I mean, when you're in it, it's hard to see things because you're being manipulated and abused. But when I finally took a step back, it actually took a friend coming to me and like screaming in my face, being like, he's emotionally abusing you. You need to get out, for me to be like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, I'm not seeing this. There's something I'm not seeing. If other people are seeing it, there must be some truth to it. And yeah, so, you know, I was able to like once I realized that it was happening, get myself out so much, not necessarily easier, it's still really hard, but I was so much more aware of what was going on. I was able to be gentle around myself, understand what I was going through, and the healing process was a lot easier than the first time around, most
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're so right, it can be absolutely anybody who ends up in these abusive relationships. I know I told you this earlier, but narcissists will often choose partners who are really strong, really powerful, they have good jobs, they have a great social life, whatever it is, because they want like that image for themselves too. So they're using you as a way to make themselves look and feel better. So it can be anybody that ends up in these situations. And it's not that you're stupid. It's not that you miss the red flags, whatever it is. It's that you're being abused and you're being manipulated, and anybody can go through
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's talk about gaslighting for a minute, because the term is so popular. What exactly is gaslighting?
Gaslighting is also a hard one to describe because it's a really covert form of emotional abuse. It's really easy to hide. So
Hmm.
that's why I think it's kind of like a newer, poppy term that's going around because people are finally starting to understand it. But it's obviously been around
Hmm.
forever. Like, these sorts of abuses did not just suddenly start in the past like 5 years, whatever it is, since we started talking about this more. But gaslighting is essentially a form of manipulation and emotional abuse where the abuser is flipping things on the victim to make the victim question their own reality, their own sanity, make it seem like the victim is the one who's crazy. So, for example, say I'm dating a guy and I go to him and I'm like, hey, I felt like you were flirting with that girl and it really upset me. He then flips it back on me and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're so crazy. You always do this. You're so jealous. And I'm left being like, oh my gosh, he's right. Like, I'm so insecure. There's something wrong with me. Like, I'm so sorry that I brought this up. You end up feeling crazy. You end up apologizing. You end up feeling that like you're in the wrong. And it's actually them manipulating you to get away with things. So that's the easiest way I can explain it, is that you're
Yeah,
kind of having your own feelings, your own emotions and experience flipped back on you in an attempt to control you.
yeah, definitely. I had, because that new show had come out, I had looked it up, and I'm just looking right now. It was since the 40s. sense. There was a film called Gaslight, which I think this one is made off of with Julia
Oh,
Roberts.
okay.
The
That makes
streaming,
sense.
yeah,
I
and
need to
it
watch
was
it.
released in 1944, and yeah, that's how they describe it too. Is where you doubt your own sanity and
Mhm.
reality. So they start to make you think that what you think is real is not really real, but they did
Exactly.
something wrong. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And one question that I had earlier, this goes with when we were talking about trauma bonds and gaslighting. Do you think that the gaslighter or the person in an abusive relationship always knows that they are doing the abusing?
It's so interesting. I was talking to my friend about this just this morning because
Mm,
I think there are actual abusers who prey on people for their
yeah,
own game or gain,
definitely.
and they know exactly what they're doing. They know how to manipulate you.
Hmm.
But I do also think, like, especially with gaslighting, I know I've, like, accidentally gaslit people and not realized I was doing it and then caught myself later on or whatever it is. So it takes a lot of my dog just ran out of my room. It takes a lot of self-awareness to know that you're doing it and then to, like, change the way you're communicating so you don't accidentally gaslight somebody. So
Hmm.
I think it's both. Like, there are people who do it purposely and they know exactly what they're doing, and then there's other people who just are still learning how to communicate, or they're super insecure, so they become controlling or these sorts of things, and they're not meaning to hurt you. It's just coming from their own, lack of knowledge or self-awareness.
Yeah, yeah. I think when you said lack of knowledge, I think one thing that reminds me of, we had on one of our other shows, we talked about generational trauma, and I think that sometimes that can perpetuate that
Yes,
cycle, can go, and that term may be fitting in that situation, um,
absolutely.
because I think that sometimes you have the term like bully, and you say that they're only bullying somebody because
Yeah,
they have their own self-esteem issues.
exactly, exactly. There's something going on
So
with
I
them.
I kind of think
Yeah,
it's similar. I mean, where
exactly.
I think that in any of these cases, even when they're doing it on purpose, that
Mhm.
obviously they would only be doing that if there was a reason that they,
Yes.
themselves had something that they were insecure.
Exactly. So in a way, you can almost have empathy for, the narcissist or whoever it is. That's a slippery slope because you
Yeah.
don't wanna
Yeah.
have so much empathy that you keep excusing their
Yes.
behaviors, but,
Right.
like, I know in my own healing journey, it was really important for me to understand, like, I didn't do anything wrong, there's nothing wrong with me, I didn't deserve that abuse, I didn't, like, bring it on myself, but that person, the person who was emotionally or physically, whatever, abusing me, they had some really painful things that happened in their life, and being able to, like, kind of see that in them allowed me to better understand that I'm not the problem, I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
It
Right.
comes from deep, deep places within themselves, deep insecurities, and being unhealed and traumatized on their own too.
Yeah. Well, and that's a really good segue. So when we talk about breaking free, um, when we talk about it, kind of this thing of it takes two to tango. It takes two to be in a relationship. Period.
Mhm.
So it's not. I think that can be. That sounds a little blaming, but I think that can be really empowering
Yeah.
because you aren't at the mercy of an abuser. Period.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it takes in this type of situation, it takes two people in
Mhm.
order for this to continue. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about maybe in your personal experience, and maybe just advice wise, but what did you do to become aware of it? Like what were the signs, and then maybe how to break free?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you say that, like, it's actually empowering, because it is. When I was able, like, with my healing journey, when I was able to look back and say, "Okay, I didn't deserve that abuse, it's not my fault," that's super important to know, but I can take responsibility for entering that relationship, for allowing that relationship to happen, whatever it is. And the more I can take responsibility, the less likely I am to repeat the same thing because I'm seeing my own hand in things. I'm seeing how, I'm attracted to a certain type of man who just happens to be a narcissistic type. And that means that there's something going on within me that's why I'm attracting that. So the more I'm able to take responsibility, the more I'm able to be self-aware and reflect and heal those things going on within me. So that was super important to me, to kind of like take back my story and not just be the victim. Like, I had the power in my story to rewrite it and to heal it. And that was super instrumental to getting me to, take action, to go to therapy, to do other things, like start going back to my church and building a community there and finding my faith again and meditating. And there were so many different things that I did. And the healing was not linear. Like I said, I was in that sort of relationship back when I was 19, 20. And then I also just went through one and I'm almost 30. So healing isn't linear. It takes time, it takes space, and it takes a lot of like, it's work. You're actually doing work on yourself, like going to therapy, booking those appointments, reading the books, listening to the podcast. Like, you have to do it all. And it's not simple. It actually takes time and effort and energy, but it's just like the best thing ever that you can do. Once you're kind of like coming out on the other side of things, you just feel so empowered and free and strong. And so, yeah, those were the things that I did mainly. Was I found a great therapist. I've seen a couple therapists. I read everything I could get my hands on. I listened to every podcast I could about narcissists and abuse and trauma, so I could better understand what was going on within my own brain. And I did things like meditate. I stopped partying as much. I stopped drinking as much. I just made a lot of different healthy choices for my life, where I was able to be more clear and focus on my healing as a result.
Great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So in your journey, you talk to me a little bit the other day about like self-discovery, and that how important for you was it to find your identity or redefine your identity
Mhm.
in that journey. And you talked to me a little bit about like Katie
Oh,
and
yeah.
Kate. I thought that was fantastic because for
So
for
funny.
me for me there was a big I don't have a Katie and a Kate, but I do I am still, I mean, defining that, in eating disorder world, you've got the voice of Ed, is a
Mhm.
big thing for eating disorder. And
Right.
for a long time I heard of that, and I had heard of it, but I didn't like, you have to be in a certain place to have it sink in.
Mhm.
And in a lot of different recovery from different things, there is this rediscovery of self.
Yeah.
And it really spoke to me when you said that, because I think that it's going to be different for everybody, but
Mhm.
it is really important. So for you, could you just talk a little bit about that self discovery?
Absolutely. It's so true. It's kind of like I had to shed my old identity, who I was even before that relationship and in that relationship, and become this new person. So for everybody watching who doesn't know our conversation the other day, I jokingly say that who I was back then was Katie. I went by Katie all through high school and college, and then randomly decided to go by Kate after graduating. So everybody's just really confused on what to call me. But I always say, like, Katie was this girl who was hurt and traumatized and unself-aware and attracting these difficult people and relationships. And now Kate is empowered, she's healed, she is self-aware, she's growing and healing, all of these things. So I kind of, in all of these relationships, you completely lose your self-worth and your own self-identity, because you become so wrapped up in that other person, codependent. You become so wrapped up in the relationship, trauma bond. So you completely lose every part of you. Like, I lost my confidence. I stopped seeing my friends. I stopped doing things that I liked. I just did whatever I needed to keep that relationship going and make that other person happy. So when I broke free of those relationships, it was like a whole journey of figuring out what I even like what are my
Mhm.
hobbies? What are the things that like excite me, that I'm passionate about? What do I want to do on a Saturday night by myself? And it was also, speaking of by myself, it took a lot of me being alone to heal. I live alone, and it's been just the most beautiful thing living alone, because I'm with myself all the time and I'm forced to not drown out the voices in my head or these traumas that I'm trying to ignore, because I'm by myself. All I can do is think and be with myself. So I'm forced to really actually like dive into them and heal them. And it's just so great because, Katie could have never handled being alone for a Friday or Saturday night. Me, now I love it. Like I love myself. I love who I've become. So I love being with her. Like I am, my own home. I am my own hero. So I've learned to love myself and figure out the things that make me happy, make me feel excited, and pursue those and reclaim who I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really good to see you so happy. I mean, you have a glow about you.
Yeah.
I think Kate's doing wonderfully.
I love Katie. I still love Katie.
I was gonna say I love Katie too, but no, I just think that that process can look different for everybody, but it is so important to explore. I know for me it was there was this regiment of I got the second time through I got addicted to like triathlons and running in like two
Mhm.
days and three, like all these things.
Totally.
And I still like to move. I still love to swim. I mean, like there's still a part of me that still loves that stuff, but
Mhm.
there was a forcing myself to do these different things, and it had to be, the shoulds and all of that. And so
Yeah.
like now when I go swim in the morning, like I don't take a Fitbit, I don't count, I don't do any, and I could never have imagined myself doing that before. And it was like this self-discovery of just
Yeah.
like, what if I do it this way, what if I do it that
Yes.
way, do I like this part of it? Oh
Mhm.
really, I don't like that part of
Mhm.
it.
It's
Oh,
tricky.
I was just doing this because
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, so I
Absolutely.
appreciate you sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, this was amazing. So is there anything else you want to share that I'm missing?
I just want people to know, like, if you are in these patterns, if you are in a toxic or abusive relationship, you can get out and you can have a completely beautiful life after that. You are strong enough to do it. And I think that's just so important for people to understand. It seems impossible. It seems truly like you'll never be happy again. You're never going to heal, but you will. And you're going to have so many years ahead of you with so many amazing people who are going to love you right. And I just want people to know that it's so possible and you're so capable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that goes with all recovery. I think
Yeah.
that when you're in it, you can't imagine. And
Oh,
I think there's a beautiful other side to it that you will come out on. And thank you so much for sharing your story. And thank you for being that vulnerable and inspiring to everybody.
thank you.
Where can everybody find your content?
Yes. Follow me on Instagram or TikTok. They're both at Kate, dot DeRocher. So it's Durocher, kind of a tricky last name, but I try to put out as much content in these sort of topics in mental health as I can. So I hope they find some good videos.
Okay, and Sam, we will link it below. That's what we will do as well. Sam, who's running all of the controls over there.
Yeah, Sam. Thank goodness for Sam.
Everybody should have a Sam.
Seriously.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you can join us again. This was really great. It was so good
I
to see
would
you.
I would love that. Thank you so much for reaching out and having me on the show.
Yeah,
Like it's just such an honor to be able to chat with you. So thank you so
absolutely.
much.
All right. Well, have a wonderful day.
You too. I'll
All
talk to you
right.
soon.
Yeah. Bye bye. Okay, thank you everybody for being here and join us again in a couple weeks on No Mud No Lotus. And in the meantime, join us on all our socials at Muddy Lotus Recovery on Instagram and Facebook and at www.muddylotusrecovery.org. Everybody have a beautiful Sunday and a wonderful week.